अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to the 499th episode of Hafta. Next is going to be the 500th episode. But it's been an extremely busy news week. I will introduce the guests first before we get into the headlines. I just want to remind everybody that we have an NL Sena project up already, which is Srinivasan going to Israel and Palestine to bring us some ground reports there.
It will soon be a year since Hamas's October 7th attack, triggering the Israel-Gaza war, the worst the region has witnessed in decades. Yet, the Indian mainstream media has scarcely reported on this story. I will travel to Ground Zero to bring you the reality of the war and to cut through the conflicting narratives surrounding it. But we can't do this without your support. Support this Newslaundry News Minute project by contributing to Gaza 1 year later.
So far, we've only got reports from either Western media or some not the finest ground reporting that we saw in the early days. So when we, get to the 1 year of Hamas's attack on Israel, Srinivasan Jain will be there. We have about 12.5 lakhs of the total 18 lakh as we record this at 3 in the afternoon on Thursday, the 22nd of August. So I'm hoping we'll be able to top this up by the weekend. Again, our election coverage and none of our reports are funded by the government or corporates. It is funded by you. So please contribute and pay to keep news free, because when the public pays, the public is served. I cannot emphasize that enough. On that note, let me now introduce the guests in the studio today. Shardool Katyayan, welcome Shardool.
Hello.
Nidhi Suresh, whose report has been phenomenal. Well done, Nidhi.
Thank you.
Our editor-in-chief, Raman Kirpal. Hi,
Hello.
sir. And joining us from Kolkata, a friend of the show who you have seen often on NL Hafta, Monideepa Banerjie. Hi, Monu.
Hi there. Good to be with you guys.
Like we've heard in the headlines, there have been about almost 5 cases of sexual assault or violence against women in hospitals across the country. But it is the one in Bengal that has actually got, the ball rolling of demands for justice, highlighting the sexual assault against women. But Monideepa, 2 aspects. How big is the protest there in Bengal? How much of it is a spontaneous outburst like happened in Delhi during the Jyoti Singh Nirbhaya case? And to what extent is there been a significant course correction by the police?
Okay, there's a short answer to your second question. Course correction, I don't think so. Just 3 police personnel who were on duty on the night of 14th August, when the hospital was attacked by a huge number of vandals and then ransacked, and the students threatened both women and men and even nurses. They were threatened in their hostels, they were threatened in the wards by men. And doctors were also, male doctors too, were threatened. After that particular night, 3 police officials, not senior, but ACP or some low-rank policemen, have been transferred out. That is what one has heard. As for the processions, I will tell you that they really began on the 14th of August. Somehow it seemed most appropriate, Eve of Independence Day and all that. And in my view, what happened on the 14th of August and subsequent protests and rallies across the city, across the state, I would say 80% of them were...
Before I get the rest of the panel in, just 2 things I want to point out. One, that this shows that media pressure makes a difference. This is the only case that is being heard by the Supreme Court with a bench headed by the Chief Justice of India. The story you did, Nidhi Hathras, we did not see any such major action. There was some limited outrage, but it wasn't wall-to-wall coverage. Forcefully, against the family's wishes, police cremated a Dalit girl in Hathras.
Yes.
We did not see the wall-to-wall coverage. Let us be clear. Our national media has failed the country unless there is a political angle to a ghastly act. They will not take this up. Mr. Shinde has not been hauled over coals by saying that they're outsiders and anti-nationals. Mamta has, as she should be. But let us remember how partisan and pathetic our legacy media is, and shame on them.
In fact, like I remember in Hathras, we actually saw in front of our eyes, Akansha and I, when we'd gone to cover, we saw the media spinning a narrative right there against the family. And we actually have visuals of Republic Channel doing this. And they had 7 reporters in Hathras at that point to try and get the Thakur community to say that there was a love affair, to malign the Dalit girl's character. So even on ground, in front of the family, they were doing it, which was, for me, very shocking because I thought this was happening in the studio, but it was even happening on ground at that point.
Right. And, Shardool, if you could come in, you think this Supreme Court hearing will make a difference? And so far, what you've consumed of it, what do you make of it?
What Supreme Court is saying may work in this case. But again and again, we've seen that once the voices, public voices and outrage dies down, although in my mind, dies down is not the right phrase for it. But when it goes down, the boil comes down, eventually, cases don't go ahead. Like, nothing changes.
Sure.
And despite what the misconduct of police in my mind, the conduct of administration and
the
government
principle
is bad because they are demanding, let's assume they are demanding, finish the investigation in 1 week. Like, that is a ludicrous demand. Because an investigation has to be able to stand judicial and legal scrutiny.
Sure.
And after what happened at the hospital, evidence is...
And if it's not thorough, you're actually doing a disservice to whatever may or may not emerge.
Yeah, and the other thing is, all these governments, be it, of course, BJP, all political parties have not implemented 2007 Prakash Singh police reform judgment of Supreme Court.
FIR normally, not only in this case, we have covered many crime cases. They file it quite late. Having said that, I'm not saying that this is right. But the trend is it always gets late. Specifically, in kidnapping cases, so it takes 48 hours. But in murder cases also, I have seen a little late. But yes, we need to see that in between this time, filing of the general diary and the FIR, what did police do? So we need to check that, and before we, say that before we come, at the conclusion why they have delayed it, we need to know the reason. What was the police activity
between that
GD
time and the FIR?
So filing of the FIR.
What was the activity happening?
I can't tell you exactly what the police movements were. What I know is that I've spoken to people who have reported that the police were on the spot by about 10 o'clock in the morning. They're on the spot, they were outside the doors of the seminar room where the body was. And they were there for a fairly long time, and junior doctors who have worked with the victim or not worked with her but work at the hospital, they have said they had gathered there and there was a tussle. They said that there was a sense that they wanted to quickly take the body away for a post-mortem. And apparently it was the junior doctors who insisted that there be a...
All of us are talking about that doctors are happening, or this woman, this young woman or girl who was assaulted. The police needs time and police needs training for it. Nobody who listens to Hafta would mistake me or Abhinandan or anybody else that we have sympathy for police in general. But to identify people, you have to understand victimology. It's a very different skill set. You have to understand victimology. You have to understand who will target this person. Why was this person targeted? It takes time. So West Bengal government's claim, finish it by Sunday or finish it within a week, is ludicrous. I said it before, but this is institutional malice and apathy.
No, also it's a knee-jerk reaction which may not lead to anything positive. Having said that, I will say that what they can do is give us an update on what you have done till the weekend rather than finish the investigation. Because the fact that nothing was done is what basically makes everybody really suspicious. If you take the case of the Talwar case in Delhi.
I think with sexual assault, the issue also is with when there's so much outrage. There's so much outrage in terms of getting punishment for the accused or asking for the death penalty or asking for stringent punishment. But the problem is in our country, I don't think we know how to talk about sexual assault.
Yes.
We don't know what is the conversation to have. So even, for example, when Nirbhaya happened and then the Justice Hema Committee was asked to produce reforms in a month, a lot of it was obviously very good. It made the laws tighter. But for example, in POCSO, they asked for death sentence for any accused. But what it actually ended up doing...
I just want to move on to the report,
which is tied into this
20 minutes, exactly. It's but just want to remind everybody, this report is something that is the outcome of the case that I mentioned earlier, of which Nidhi has done an 11-chapter, very detailed report, which you can read. The link is in the show notes below. Nidhi will tell us more about where this comes from and what it says and why parts of it are redacted. I mean, that's something I'm curious about. And just want to remind you again to top up our funds for the Haryana and Jammu and Kashmir election, because we will be sending about 7 reporters and 3 producers across the 2 states. Our journalism is not powered by corporations or governments, whether state government or central government. You'll see no ads on our site or on any of our other reports and news content, because we depend on you. So please, you can use the QR code that you see on the screen, or you can click on the link in the show notes below and contribute and fund independent journalism, because that is the only way you can actually make sure that the pipeline of information that comes to you does not get totally compromised through interests that are in conflict with the public interest. So tell us about this report, the outcome, and why it's redacted.
So the Hema Committee was constituted a month after Dilip, the superstar in Malayalam film industry, was accused of orchestrating a crime where he had allegedly hired 6 criminals to kidnap and assault a young female actor who has worked in multiple other industries as well, predominantly in the South. So initially his name had not come in, and then through investigation it was found that he might have been the mastermind behind conspiring this assault. When that started happening, a group of women started coming together to offer support to the survivor. Eventually they called themselves the Women in Cinema Collective. They were a group of about 14 women. They sat together and
from Malayalam cinema?
All from Malayalam cinema. They sat together, and I remember speaking to one of them when we were reporting the story on Dilip's case, that when they sat down to talk about what happened to the survivor and how to offer support, they realized that it was a 3-panel committee with a retired judge, 1 retired bureaucrat, and 1 senior artist from the cinema industry. And women were asked to come and testify and say that, talk about the issues they faced within the cinema world. Men also came and spoke to the committee. So I think a total of about 40-45 women and a few men testified. And in 2019...
Has the Pinarayi government overall been more proactive when it came to the Dilip case? Because there were accusations earlier that investigation of whether it was at the state level, whether it was at... Because he's such a star, he has clout across, even at the local Thana level. They kind of were not very cooperative in the investigation. Or has there been a sudden turnaround in their conduct and behavior towards this issue?
So initially, when the Dilip incident had happened, Pinarayi Vijayan actually gave a statement saying that this is not a conspiracy and that 6 men who did the crime have been immediately arrested, which he was forced to retract because the opposition party started raising hell and they said, no, there is enough to suggest that this is a conspiracy. So even today, people really point that out, that why did he make that comment? Who was he supporting? Who are these men, powerful men within the industry that are being protected? But when the Women in Cinema Collective was formed, which is the first of its kind in the country, he put together the Hema Commission, and then of course the government has been blamed for burying it. Now...
But is this not true that Justice Hema herself had said that name should not come out?
Yeah, in fact, when they asked women to come and testify, they were told that it will be confidential.
Right. So they can't go back on it now.
The women's names will be confidential.
Right.
But now they make the perpetrator's name also confidential.
Yeah. Because essentially,
but again,
if you reveal
it becomes a legal issue, right? It becomes like it's putting out a name when there's not enough investigation happened, which, I mean, if you think of it rationally, may be a reasonable position to take.
So 2 things which are besides all of this, that a lot of Malayalam industry was working on informal contracts. Like there was one incident that a a female actor was promised 50,000 or 60,000 rupees for 20 days work, and then she was giving 4,000 rupees. And like, so this is just plain harassment. The other thing is, in these incidents of which are actual crimes, there are minor statements also. So
that's not very clear yet.
Yes,
There's
yes.
a mention of girl in
Yes.
sections
So-
where they've mentioned women. So the assumption is that this must have been a minor.
Yeah, so they're looking for
because
clarification.
when they have referred to someone as woman, it
Yeah.
means something else. Girl means something
Yeah.
else. Got it.
So the thing is, like, it is a legal conundrum, because no matter what you think about, like, all of us agree that people who have committed these crimes would be, brought to the book. But you got this information by promising people that their names won't be revealed.
Yeah, that becomes tricky. like
And
you
the other
said.
thing is, like, what that conversation was with Dhanya was the person who was having from WCC. The conversation implied that
बस मुफ्त में इतना ही मिलेगा. For the full uncut podcast, subscribe to Newslaundry and pay to keep news free. The best way to listen to The Hafta and indeed all our podcasts is through the Newslaundry app. You can download the app by clicking on the links given in the show notes. So do download our app and get the best podcast experience. And also pay for news and support a new news media ecosystem that Newslaundry is trying to encourage, where we are accountable to you because we run on contributions that you make. We don't take government ads, we don't take corporations ads, so that news serves the public, because when the public pays, the public is served. Subscribe to Newslaundry, click on the link in the show notes below and proudly say, I pay to keep news free.